Again, it's all been about building relationships. I knew when I was a junior, I did an internship at Playwrights Horizons and I worked in an original play, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. And so after I got my MFA in directing, I started pursuing directing new plays, and it was all about building relationships with playwrights. I'd find a play I loved and I'd shop it around and I'd get a production, and that would lead to that theater asking me back. And that's how I've gotten a lot of the work that I've gotten. It's just being asked back. And so one of the things I hope we'll talk about today is being that person who gets asked back, because that's very, very important. What I've been doing now is that in addition to directing and acting coaching, about 1.5 years ago, I launched a business doing public speaking coaching. And most of my clients are corporate clients, although some individuals come to me as well. And that's been a godsend because there isn't a whole lot of theater to do right now. So I have this other project, but I have really had to make some changes in the way I do things, meaning I have to be on camera all the time. I don't mean in Zoom meetings, I mean presenting. I just did a webinar, I'm doing another interview. I'm a director. I like to stand in the back. But in the last few months, I've had to really get over that and say, all right, I have to be on camera. I have to not just coach the speaker, I have to be the speaker. So it's been a really important lesson to me in the last few months about being fluid and being adaptable. And I was so happy to hear that some of you are interested in writing and acting and directing, because the more things you can do, the more things you're going to do.
Especially today when it's the world is so digital, and you can, if you want to write and act and produce, you really can. It's not an easy road, but it's something that someone can be that person to do it all. So I like to see that you guys are all keeping all those options open. So let me ask you guys a question. Does anybody want to start by asking us a question? Go ahead, Kira.
Okay, so Nancy, I'll have to come back around to you, but a question I have for both of you is, what did you guys get from attending Oneonta that you don't feel like you could have gotten at any other school?
Oh, isn't that an interesting question? Well, the friends that I walked away with are the friends, and listen, as someone who is the elder in this crowd, you guys are going to roll your eyes at almost every answer I have, because you're not going to believe it until you've crossed your 29th year. I promise you, but I'm just going to say this anyway. The camaraderie that I had, the posse, I always tell people, find your posse, which is exactly what Nancy said, find your posse. The friends that I made in Oneonta, I produced a TV show. I hired Dave Feldman to do the lights for one of the episodes. Nancy and I started a theater company. She directed one of our first plays, and we hired someone to do the lights, and we hired someone to do the costumes, all from Oneonta. So that posse stays with you. Especially in entertainment, the idea of being a freelance person and being fiercely competitive has to go away. You have to be friendly competitive. You have to know who your friends are. You have to know that I'm an actor and a writer, but in this particular show, I'm only going to write, so I need to find my actor. Who's going to be the producer? It's really that simple. So I feel like, but I can also say that doesn't affect today, but when I went to Oneonta, it was the only New York State school that had a color television studio. Do you believe that no other New York State school had that? I learned how to use a board like nobody's business. Jim Whiteman actually went on to be the Emmy Award winning director of News 12, right, Nancy? News 12 it is. And when I say director, I don't mean creative director like Nancy's. I mean, he manages the station. And that, I don't think I would have learned that anywhere else if I hadn't stepped into, if you go somewhere else, you have to major in television. I don't think I would have learned that anywhere else. So those are my two things. I learned how to use a TV board, which I'm so excited about because I still love pushing those buttons. And the posse, like that's what I took away from Oneonta. Nancy, you want to add to that?
Sure. We've already talked about the posse and our people, so I'll talk about other things. I realized when I took my first directing class senior year at Oneonta, it was like getting struck by lightning. That's what I had to do. And I had the opportunity to direct productions. My first semester, senior year, I directed a one-act play. And then in my spring semester, I directed a full-length, fully produced, fully designed production. And I know now, because I've had a couple of campus visits, that those opportunities are even greater for students now. So I really had the opportunity to do what I wanted to do and make the art that I wanted to make. And I also knew that graduating from college at age 21, who was going to let me direct a play? I needed to go to graduate school. And I took a year in between college and graduate school applying and all of that stuff. But I feel like Oneonta really, really, really prepared me for graduate school, which for me was absolutely necessary. And I'll just throw this in quickly. It was a great strategy for me to go right away. To go right away, I ended up, with the help of some of my former professors and in preparing, I ended up getting an assistantship. I went to Illinois of all places, but I came back with an MFA and no debt. Just have to
Nice.
throw that out there.
Can I also want to throw something in there, point and counterpoint a little bit, because I did not go to grad school. So I'm a big believer in it, but I just did not go. But I also say, Kier, the other thing that I took away, and this is again going to be hard for you guys to understand, relationships with professors. So there was a time about 10 years ago, Nancy, 25 of us wound up going back for an event that the Alumni Association was doing. And we went out with our professors that night. Like, they heard we were in town. This Nancy speaks to this one speaks to that one. Like, no time had passed. And not only that, they knew all about us and we knew all about them because we kept in touch with them. They're a great resource. They just are, the ones that we grew up with. So that's the next, I'm stumbling on my words because it's hard to understand that when we graduated, maybe not right away, maybe not in the first 2 or 3 years, but soon after, we kept relationships with those professors. And that's really important too, because they're your resources. Scott's probably cursing me right now saying, don't have them call me, I'm good. But they're definitely our resources. Sorry, Scott.
The only good thing about Facebook.
True. All right, that was a great question. Thank you. Who's got another question? Go ahead. Person next to Ashley. Caitlin? I forgot your name. Kylie.
Yeah, Kylie.
Kylie, I was close. Sorry, Caitlin. Kylie.
That's okay. I was just wondering if you had any advice for someone wanting to pursue theater during a pandemic, because it's sneaking up on me that I'm going to graduate, and I just was wondering if you had any advice, especially for someone who wants to go into acting.
So you said two different things, Kylie. Are you an actor going into theater, or are you someone that wants to work in theater, or both?
Both, yeah.
So there's something about entertainment. There's something about theater. So you don't have to always pick a lane, and I'm not telling you to pick a lane, and you're picking an industry that's closed. So I'm in theater, film, and television. All three are closed. So that's a rough one. So I don't know, Nancy. Let me just say, before the pandemic struck, I was producing a play, and I had an okay actor, like a good actor, and I have a great director as a Tony nominee. I did not have a space, but I had a great casting director as well. And then pandemic struck, and all those three elements not helping. I mean, we're going to put it online, we'll do it, not helping. Theater, I think, is one of the most difficult forms of entertainment to break into. And it's always about relationships. Right? That's all. I mean, it's always about relationships. So you should start now reaching out to all of those Oneonta alums that work in theater. Start getting internships. Acting internships don't exist. You just got to get booked for a role. That's ridiculous because it's so hard to do. I like the path that we took because we built this, we created a company that lasted for 3 years. That doesn't sound like a very long time, but for all of us, it was work. We all had day jobs to supplement it, but we still knew we had a performance every other weekend. I'm not helping you at all with this answer. Nancy, you're more in theater. How do you feel that someone could possibly get started during a pandemic?
Well,
we're all unemployed. Yeah. So no matter who you are and how successful you are, my father to this minute still says I'm unemployed when a show shuts down. And it didn't shut down because of anything evil. It just shut down because a TV show takes 44 weeks to shoot. That 45th week, guess what? You're unemployed. So we are all unemployed right now, and that's going to be hard for the new people coming in.
The only work that I've had in theater is from, again, relationships. People who've said, "Oh, I'm doing this reading. Would you like to direct it?" And I've had some great experiences doing that. But I think, well, let me ask you, where are you going to be after you graduate?
I would like to go to grad school. I was looking at California, but I'm also looking at moving to New York City, just doing it, you know. But
Kylie, there's no theater in California, so
Yeah.
right away I'm going to say you have to make a decision. You want to be an actor or an actress? You want to be whichever way you prefer, whatever. Do you want to be an actor, or do you want to be an actor in theater? Because that's the only lane. I don't know, Nancy, jump in here, but I think that's the only lane you really do have to pick. Being an actor is great. There's so many outlets for you, but theater's in New York.
yeah, that's why, because I was looking at grad schools out west, and then maybe like moving back or something like that. But
Good
again,
options, all excellent options.
mhm.
I mean, I'm a very big advocate, because it's what I did, of going to graduate school right away. I mean, there's nothing happening. I mean, you know, I've talked to so many people who've said, "Oh, but I got this great job. I had a chance to do this off-Broadway play, so I didn't go to graduate school, and then I never went, or I tried to go later." This is the time. This is the time, because if you move to New York now, there's going to be nothing for you, really.
Right.
Like, if you're thinking about graduate school, this is the perfect time, and get more education and get your skills and get your chops, and then when you're done, there'll be more to do. There'll be more opportunities.
Yes. You'll have more. When you're done, you'll still have the same questions, but you'll have more options. Nancy, when you go to a grad school program, are internships a big part of the curriculum?
In many places, yes.
So my question is,
I did my internship actually when I was an Oneonta student. It was a really great program. I got to do it through Empire State College, and I was an intern at Playwrights Horizons. And
get any better than that?
Talk about relationships. I worked for a Broadway stage manager who I am still in touch with, and who helped me get one of my favorite directing jobs I've ever gotten, directing a musical written by the team of John Peelmeyer. Do you know the play Agnes of God? He wrote that. And the composer Maddie Selman. That goes back to my junior year at Oneonta.
That's
So
awesome.
any opportunity to do an internship, I mean, you have to be smart and you have to do your research.
But here's my question: is it smart to go to? And this is a point and counterpoint, because I don't know if the theater community is closed, which we know Broadway, they're saying they're closed till 2021, May of 2021. Are there internships available? If the point of a lot of grad schools curriculum rely on these internships, should you wait until Broadway opens again? And I don't know. And Scott, maybe you have more insight on this than I do, but I love going back to school. I say that to myself all the time. I should still go back to school, but I'm not going to get the hands-on experience because theater's closed.
So there's a couple of things I want to push back a little bit on the thought that you can't do theater in other places other than New York. I just want to argue that point a little bit. There's theater scenes kind of all over the country, and kind of depends on what you want your experiences and opportunities to be. So I just want to, yes, New York City is kind of the epicenter of the theater world, but it is not the be all and end all. It's not the only place.
You're absolutely right. I was talking.
So, there's great places in Chicago.
No, you're absolutely right. Can you go to Chicago right out of the gate? So you're absolutely right, by the way, because I put 2 shows on the road. So you are absolutely right. And I did not mean to insult any of the other. Without the Chicago theater, I wouldn't have a show on. I would not have had a show on Broadway. Here's my question though: do you think you can start in Chicago? Isn't that such a closed little community?
I don't know that it's any easier or harder than. I mean, New York, the competition is so fierce just in terms of numbers.
True that.
That sometimes it's easy. And frankly, I would encourage people when things start happening again, looking at things like tours.
Yeah.
To get your foot in the door. In fact, they talked a couple weeks ago with Carly Bettyall. I don't know if you all have met her before or yet have heard her name. She's she went to school here, but now she got in on Hamilton, but she got her start touring, and that's how she got her foot in the door.
Interesting. And where did the tour start though? Like, what did she start on?
I'm trying to remember which show she started on. I don't remember.
That's a tough, that would be, I don't know enough. I know that there's 2 touring companies out there, right? Not the regional, like there's Broadway Across America and what's the other one? And they're like, they have this lock on the industry that if they don't know you, they don't put you in.
But there's also, I mean, there's a lot of little like children's theater. There's a lot of roles for children's theater tours. And they're often a lot more local, but whatever you're going to do, to go back to the theme is really, it's all about being, finding a place to start building those relationships. And grad school is a great place to do that as well. I've still got contacts with people I went to grad school with. My experience was I did go right out of undergrad and about halfway through wish I hadn't.
Yeah.
How
come?
Because burnout.
Oh.
I'd been in school since kindergarten, so it was just I wouldn't have minded taking some time off and kind of exploring just the world, and also getting my foot in the door on other projects, because I was pretty green when I went in. But that's my personal experience, so it's going to be different for everybody. But it is also another good place to build your contacts. And those people in grad school are pretty much, their mission once they get out of grad school is to get work. So if you're making contacts with them, everybody's focused on getting work, and then you're the last person they had contact with. So they're going to be thinking about you maybe more so than the people they were in undergrad with.
It also depends on what you want to get out of it. If you want to get that conservatory training, if that's what's important to you right now, this is a great time.
And also grad school is, some of it depends on what you want to do. If your goal is really to get out and be in the business, a graduate degree doesn't necessarily guarantee that. I know lots of people who are out working who never went to grad school. If you want to get into the education side of things, then it's pretty much mandatory. If you don't have an MFA, you're not really going to be able to be on a tenure track teaching line. You can adjunct for days with a BA, but you're never going to be on a stable tenure track position without an MFA. Or a PhD if you're into the the history academic side.
That's true. Does that help you at all, Kylie? You had 3 really important, great debate happening here, but does it help you at all?
Yes, thank you so much.
You want to follow up any other question based on everything you just heard?
I'm going to process the information.
Good, thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else who's got a great question? Go for it, Kiera. Does anyone else have a question? All right, we're back. Go.
Nancy, you mentioned Playwright Horizons twice. I don't know if you noticed, my soul lit up like a Christmas tree. Can you tell me more about that?
Oh gosh, well, I think I always had an interest in new plays, and like someone else, I'm not looking at my notes right now. I was also an English and theater major because I love to read. And part of what I love about directing is I love to read and I love to do the research. And the thing that was just so fortunate about Playwrights Horizons was that I got to work on a new play, and I realized that the chemistry between the director and the playwright and the actors, when you're working on something that nobody's ever seen before, is magical. And I knew I wanted to be part of that. And so that really led me on the path of this is what I want to do. No interest in doing Shakespeare. In the past 10 years, I've had I've had the privilege to do a couple of American classics. In fact, I did Death of a Salesman and Glass Menagerie in the same year, which was kind of incredible. But mostly, I want to do new plays. So that's what that experience. It was just, again, like getting struck by lightning, being there.
Can I ask you a follow-up question? Like,
Yeah.
how did you get into that? Did you just like submit an application? Because I would love to do that, but I don't think I have the self-esteem for it just yet. So
Oh gosh, I was helped by the SUNY system. I applied for, it was a semester at Empire State College, and that's how I got my internship. There are different paths now. But I think any theater that you're interested in, you can go on their website, and there's always a place where you can look for opportunities and find out, do they take internships? It's just targeting the theaters that you're interested in, finding out, do they take interns, do they not? Some of them are very open and love them, but the thing that you have to think about is that interns for an organization are work. They have to have an intern coordinator. So there's going to be an application process, and some places are going to be more competitive than others. But if there's some place that you want to work, you should go for it. Find out what they need for the application, and you should go for it.
Yeah, I want to kind of comment two things to you, Kiara, about the thing you said about self-esteem. You don't get all of the things you don't apply for. So you just got to do it, and you never know what happens. The worst thing that happens is they say no. It's just like auditioning. You don't get a part you don't audition for. And, you're gonna get told no probably more often than not. But if you don't try, then it's guaranteed. So take the leap, get feedback from people before you take the leap. If, you've got submissions and stuff, that's what, all of us on campus are for. But, you just kind of need to do it. Second thing, in terms of internships, I'm pretty sure ArtSearch just essentially, for those of you who don't know what ArtSearch is, it's essentially a publication geared specifically for theater artists, and it lists jobs, internships, teaching positions. It is currently free, even though I just saw that. I'm pretty sure I just shared it like yesterday. So ArtSearch has opened that up. Normally it's a subscription-based thing, which the department also has a subscription for. So I will post a link to that in the Facebook group so you guys can access that. And really, now is the time. In fact, normally I would tell people it's past time for applying for internships and summer gigs and whatnot. The one thing, there is a little bit of hope on the horizon. There have now been two very encouraging vaccine studies. So there is some hope on the horizon that, this is we're gonna get on top of this. It's gonna be dark for a little while still though. And, not everybody's gonna have a shot at the vaccine for a bit. So we're gonna be managing it for a while, but we'll get there. So do not lose all faith.
I would love to just add something to that. It's okay to be afraid. Do it anyway.
Yeah.
I practice that every day. Every day. My favorite quote of all time is Mark Twain. Courage is the mastery of fear, not the absence of it.
Mm-hmm.
So be afraid, own it, and say, okay, this is how I feel, and yet I'm going to do this thing, and I'm going to put myself out there. I mean, I just talked about this earlier. I'm putting myself on camera on purpose and doing webinars and things I never thought I'd be doing.
yeah, that's actually another thing I wanted to ask you. What is it like making that transition? Because I know backstage people who are like mortified by the idea of being on camera. So what has it been like for you?
I had to, first of all, I had to make myself understand that it was necessary. And I got a lot of help. So for example, when I first, before I did the webinar, I did the presentation to a not-for-profit that I'm working with, who I knew was going to love it. And they were a great audience for my maiden voyage. And I got all the kinks out, and they were smiling the whole time and so appreciative. And then I practiced in front of friends. I practiced like exactly how I rehearsed. And I got feedback and I got help and I got over it. And I trained myself to look into the camera and not at myself, because that's, you know, that's something a lot of people struggle with, myself included. I don't anymore because now I've done it enough. I mean, you do something enough and you face your fear and you just do it anyway. I'm like, oh my God, I have to be on camera. I can't stand it. Do it anyway. Because you have something to offer. And you need to let people see that. I'm not going to say it happened in a day. I worked at it. I worked at it with a lot of help from my friends.
But you know what Nancy said that's so important and it's so hard to remember? You have to practice. Whether you're going for an interview, it's not just about practicing a monologue for an audition. If you're going for an interview, if you're making a presentation, you have to practice. You have to know your audience. Who are you going to go meet? Who are you interviewing with? Be able to come to the party with questions. You have to practice. And it's really, it takes a long time to understand that if you don't say these words out loud, and the first time you hear them is when you're sitting in this interview, you're going to jar yourself. It's really, that's like what she said is very important. Practice.
Yeah, being prepared. And I actually want to give everyone a resource. If you're going to be applying for internships or those of you who are seniors jobs, there's a great website called The Muse. And it gives you resources about interviews, about how to write a thank you note after an interview, how to write this kind of email. I mean, it's an invaluable resource. You just Google The Muse.
Okay, another question before we start asking? Go ahead. Oh, wait, hold on. Oh, that wasn't a hand. Peter, I thought that was your hand. You don't have a question at all? Come on. Muted. Kiera, hold on one sec. You're coming? Go for it. Peter, what do you got?
Nothing that hasn't been asked. I was gonna ask about like going into theater in a pandemic, but no, yeah. You've explained it very well, so I don't really I have to think of another one.
So I have a question. I know Kiara's a writer. Who else is a writer in this group? Anyone? Caitlin, I'm sorry, Kylie, you too? But you're also interested in behind the scenes.
Me.
Yes. So when you say behind the scenes, what does that mean?
Stage management. I've been a stage manager before and I really enjoyed it. Acting is my number one. It's my passion. That's what I love to do the most. But stage management, it really interests me. And I've written plays just on my own. They've never gone anywhere, but I like doing it.
All right. And you're the president of American Hammer?
Yes.
Was checking. Okay. All right. So Nancy, let me ask you a question. You said that, how do you find, so I know you love the playwrights because you said that. How do you find your material though? How do you find the playwrights that you want to work with? There
are several organizations that you can get to know. I was fortunate that I worked at NYU in the Department of Dramatic Writing for 15 years, and so I met a lot of playwrights there. But there are a lot of writers groups, and some of them are informal, some are more formal, where you can get to know the writers and the actors, and they bring in directors. And they actually are all over the country. And the little silver lining that we have right now is we can work with people all over the country. I just 2 weeks ago, I got invited to collaborate with a playwrights group that is in Nashville. So it's about finding playwrights groups, and most of them always want actors because they need actors to read the material. And depending on their format, if they do any kind of rehearsal, they want directors as well. So
is it easier now that we're in a pandemic to get on some kind of, because I know that everybody's doing a digital reading or they're doing virtual performances. As an actor, is it easier to get noticed when you're doing a virtual or digital reading? Is it the same hurdles?
I've only done a few of them. So I think the audience is smaller. I mean, I did a reading with all the cast but one was Canadian, the playwright was Canadian, and it was some of the like top actors in Canada. We didn't have a huge audience. I mean, it was a great reading, it was a great play.
Interesting.
So because I think it takes a lot for people to sit down and watch a Zoom reading. You either have to know the playwright or one of the cast, or if it's a total star-studded big event, maybe
Right.
people will watch it. But it's a little bit of a hard sell.
Has anyone been watching any of the digital or the virtual performances that are happening now? A lot of them are free to the public theater has. Have you been paying attention to some of them? You haven't watched it? So some of them are pretty interesting. I know that the public theater they were one of the early ones, and they said the play that they did, now of course we're talking about the public theater, right? So that, okay, it comes with a subscription base of, 1 million people, but they said they made more money off of this digital performance because they had 80,000 views, which meant they sold 80, what they would never have done if it were live in the theater. So there's a really interesting thing happening now with this merge of digital and the television, filming is merging with live theater. It's really a very interesting thing. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending upon your view, equity has taken a giant step back. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the unions, but equity is really didn't know how to step into these kind of capturing digital performances. So there's a lot of territory grab now. Does that make sense? So if you're doing a live show and you decide to go with the unions, you're an equity show. If you're doing a live show and you're filming it, not capturing it, if you're filming it without a live audience, then you're SAG-AFTRA. So it's really an interesting power struggle that's happening right now. But so many people are now diving into this hybrid. And I think it's great. I think that means there's a lot more opportunity for people that are in all forms of media, digital, virtual, all that sort of stuff. I think that's pretty great.
Well, it also means you can reach a global audience.
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly.
I have a friend who teaches improv, and he's very gifted, and he started doing these online classes. He is so busy, and he has students from all over the world.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
But the interesting thing about equity is, actors aren't getting compensated to perform before 80,000 people.
Right, exactly. But the thing about equity, though, is they have in their contract, they have provisions for capture, right? So if you're doing like Hamilton, let's say, Hamilton was not a capture. It was a 13 camera setup that they did over 3 performances, and then they cut it together. So there's another hybrid of a capture, which means they shot some performances and then they cut it together to digitally air on a streaming network. That's also a hybrid. But if you're doing like Oklahoma, where you capture it, that means 2 cameras in the back and you show that on Broadway HD, that's under equity's contract because they captured a live performance. But if you're getting what the public did and you're putting 4 actors on a stage with no audience and you're shooting it, it's all about the semantics. Now it's not equity. It's fascinating because what it's showing is that something has to change, because why can't you graduate college and get a job in the industry in which you choose without having to go through all these hoops and dealing with unions and all that sort of, and maybe now it'll be better for you. Maybe that's I
want to get back to something Dana mentioned earlier, that when we graduated, we formed our own company. We made our own work.
Yeah.
Make your own work. I mean, actually, that is easier to do now. You don't have to rent a theater.
Right, exactly.
You don't have to get people to where your theater is.
And actually, you would love this because we became a 501c3. We raised money by, we got grants and we did all this sort of stuff. And none of us, when you said that you were, looking at the philanthropic and fundraising for theater, like theater is all about fundraising. Theater is real estate and fundraising. That's what theater is. If you don't have a space, you can't put up your show. If you don't have the money, you can't put up the show. It's real estate and fundraising. So that's what you're interested in, which I find amazing. But when we started our company, we had to, there was like the smart one of the crowd, Katie Darcy, the smart one of the crowd. We became a 501c3 and we raised money, and that's how we were able to pay our actors. So we did it. Yeah, we sort of just grabbed everyone and said, hey, I got a barn, I got a camera, let's put on a play. But we also did it in a way that we were fiscally responsible and raised money. And I thought that was fascinating. That's what got me more involved. From that experience, I learned that I was a much better producer than I was an actor. So that definitely changed my world. So I'm curious, when you say you're interested in the fundraising part of the arts, what is that to you?
I guess there's it's not just specific to theater. Like, I've been doing research about master's programs. Like, I want to be involved with theater and like being part of like the production side and like fundraising, all the stuff. But I also want to do like some philanthropy for like groups that need like fundraisers, like events almost, that instead of just providing the financial help for theater, like also financial help for like groups that could need it, for people that need it. I don't know how to put it into words.
You mean the performers, like the talent?
That, yeah. And like just like putting up the shows. I think like that whole part of theater is really interesting, and I want to learn more.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Good. No, go.
I can add something to that. I directed a show with a theater company called Red Fern, and you might be interested in looking them up, because their mission was that every show they did benefited a philanthropy. So they would choose an issue, or they would choose a play, and then they would find a philanthropy that they could benefit and also raise awareness. So for example, the play that I did for them had a character who was from Sudan. And the company paired with an organization called Water for South Sudan to help supply drinking water to South Sudan. And so it's a really interesting business model. You should just look them up. And they've gotten written up. They were written up in American theater. You can just take a look.
What's interesting is that whatever you choose to do, and I don't mean as a career, I mean as a project, whether Nancy's going to go up and direct something or I'm going to go produce something, you have to have what Nancy's talking about is an impact campaign. So everything has to have, it's sort of now just a no-brainer. You're going to do something regardless of what your topic is. People want to know, where's your social responsibility? Where's your corporate responsibility? And it's a whole great way of thinking and a very different way of thinking. And every play, and if you go to a play and you get your playbill, there's either an insert, whether it's Broadway or, somewhere, Broadway or regional or off Broadway, you'll get an insert and someone will say like, so what's happening now? And what's your impact? And it's amazing. And it's the way it should be, because we've taken so many leaps and bounds to sort of be smart and be socially responsible, that now it's great that our art's actually doing that. So I think that's a really smart thing to do. And everything, look at Participant Productions does theater, and they do television, and they do film, but they don't do anything unless it has a social impact. So I think that's a really smart way to look at what you're writing and what you're producing and what's the impact.
I have one more resource to throw out there in case you don't know about it already. The Broadway Green Alliance. They have, what?
We started it. So we started
Canada, tell.
So the Producers Guild of America, and you guys should go online and look for it's greenproductionguide.com. So the Producers Guild of America, golly, like 7 years ago, 8 years ago, we started something called PGA Goes Green, or PGA Green, which is another website, pgagreen.org. And what it did was it showed producers, and we met with the Broadway League and branched out to them as well. It showed producers that going green is not a chore, and going green is not expensive, because the first thing you'll always hear, no matter who you are and what you're doing, is that going green adds money to the budget. Well, it really doesn't. And you have to do the math. You can say it does, you have to do the math. When I do a show, no more plastic water bottles. They're just not allowed on my set. I will spend $1,000 and I will buy everybody their refillable bottle. I can put a logo on it if I want. If I don't want, it doesn't matter. But by not doing plastic water bottles, I've saved $1,500 a month, because not a month, I'm lying, a week, because I'm not buying the water, I'm not paying for the trash, because you have to have trash pickup. I mean, it's just a whole cycle. So we bled that into Broadway. Now, Broadway is not as sustainable as we'd like yet. And Neil, oh God, Scott, what's Neil's last name?
Mazzella.
Thank you. They are a huge part of it because they build scenery, right? So we're trying to, well, we started, but the scenery has got to be reused. It's got to be not just recycled, repurposed, reused, which, you know, anyone that grew up in a college shop knows that that's what you do, right? You don't throw stuff away, but that's what people get in the habit of doing. So that's what the Broadway Green Alliance does. That's what PGA Green does. And it's so much fun to learn that now. So what I always say is you prep to wrap. So if you're starting a show, how are you going to get rid of everything? How are you going to get your trash taken out? How are you going to recycle these sets? How are you going to dispose of these sets? My favorite thing to do, and I did a little cottage industry of this, I would go into a TV show when it was done, when it was canceled, and I would strike it, and I would have, the studios would give me like a month to strike, whereas in the past you'd get a week and you'd have to just throw everything out. But in that month we had, Nancy, I called you once, we had like every theater company, I called Oneonta, everyone, what do you want? Do you want rubber? Do you want Duvetine? What do you want? Come on, just, you got to come and pick it up. That was the only rule. So prepping to wrap is such a key phrase now. And it's the same thing with writing. You write to be sustainable, because people want to know that you're not just writing for the gory, slashy, you know, huge explosions, because explosions lead to smoke and smoke leads to pollution. It's just, it's a different way to think. And I think it's a lot of fun. It's a challenge, but it's a lot of fun. So thank you for bringing that up, Nancy, because that's what you guys have to do now. It's awesome.
Well, that's exactly why I wanted to bring it up. You can start doing that now.
Yeah.
You probably already are doing it. I mean, I think of my grandmother, who was raised, you know, during the Depression. She recycled everything before it was popular and reused everything. So the more we can get back to that, the better.
Check out greenproductionguide.com, because it gives you tools and checklists and how to go on, you know, how to start your shows, whether they're theater or it's very much film and television geared, but still look at it and get some ideas to how to, and it's supported by all the major studios and the mini majors as well. So that's kind of a fun thing. It's so
and actually, I know of a small not-for-profit that is now going for the off Broadway and the regional theaters and the smaller businesses, and they're partnering with Broadway Green Alliance too.
Oh yeah.
You want folks, check out the chat. Scott has been great about putting stuff in the chat. So
okay,
thank you. All the things that we're talking about, all the links are there. So copy them.
So interesting. That's a job opportunity. So, you know, we are supposed to talk about job opportunities in entertainment, but there's a young woman who started a company called Earth Angel, and Earth Angel's job, their company goes to productions and helps them become sustainable. They will it's a paying position, you know, you hire them and they have staff on set that runs around and shows people how to recycle and goes to the various departments and say, you know, it's a really good company. And what they're doing is they are encouraging people that are, you know, 40 years in the industry that don't know how to recycle. They're showing them how to recycle, as well as they're monitoring the carbon footprint. And I think that's a really interesting person who found a need in an industry that she loves and then just ran with it. I like that.
You just made me think of another thought, Dana, for job opportunities. I recently saw somebody posted that they were doing a Zoom reading and they needed a stage manager who's really good on Zoom. So the thing is, for the stage managers here, it's not going to just be readings.
Yeah.
Corporate meetings, like now, you know, I'm in the corporate world a little bit, and I was asking this one colleague when she does a training that's more than, say, 30 people, I said, do you have someone manage the chat and take care of all the technical aspects? She said, absolutely. So if you can get those skills, that's something that people need right now.
Yeah.
People need help. I mean, especially like, for example, if it were me and I were presenting and it's 5 people, great. I can look at the chat. But, you know, when I did the webinar, I did nothing except present. Someone else was the host. They managed the reservations. They managed the people who couldn't get on last minute. They managed the chat. They managed all the technical elements. So it's a thing that's needed right now.
Yeah, that's amazing. This is what are we, 12 squares here? Now think of doing a piece of art with just 12 squares. It's boring. So you really want someone to be able, and it probably wouldn't be Zoom, right? There's so many other great platforms that could use that are free as well. But you want to focus on this person speaking, this person's doing this. You want to just, play with it and not just have 12 squares reading lines.
Well, Zoom and other platforms, I'm sure, do have different formats where you can manipulate. It's not free, but you can manipulate what the audience is going to see. Yeah,
exactly. I love that. That's a lot of fun because it's art, right? You want to keep people engaged and entertained, and a lot of people just don't want to have one more Zoom meeting or one more video meeting. But when you make it fun, yeah. Danielle Beck. Anyone have any last questions?
Pop up out of the blue, right? What does this mean? We're getting close to 5, and I know some students might have class, so I just wanted to make sure that we knew there was we're coming up on the end, so nobody missed out on anything important.
All right, last questions. Who's got? Kiara and Jillian, why don't you go first, and then Kiara will come back to you. You ask.
Okay. This question's more for Nancy. So I enjoy writing as well, and I haven't had much experience with dramatic writing scripts yet. So when you look at new plays, what are some qualities of a script that makes you want to direct it?
That's a great question. Because I've worked in so many different genres. So it isn't the style necessarily, though some styles speak to me. It's really, if the heart of the play, if the heart of the message is leaping off the page, that's when I want to direct it. Nice. So, in fact, one of my favorite ever plays that I ever directed started with that quote by Mark Twain. I was like, oh, this is going to keep me reading. But I would encourage you to take a look at the Dramatists Guild has a foundation, and that's our educational arm. And then take a look at new dramatists, go on their website and see what resources they have. And then see if you can find some playwriting groups and just show up with some pages.
Nancy, what do you think about Broadway License? Have you ever worked with them? I don't know if they're new or not, but it's a different arm of, it's not an arm of New Dramatists, but it's New Dramatists, but there's also Broadway License, and it's where a lot of the new playwrights are going to get their stuff published.
Oh, yeah, I haven't worked with them. No, but there's another wonderful resource. Actually, if any of you are ever looking for new plays, or anybody on the faculty or Mask and Hammer looking for new plays, there's a great resource called the National New Play Network, and you can join for free. And the plays are new, some are published, but there are a lot of plays that are just treasures that, because they haven't been on Broadway or haven't been adapted to a film, they're not household names.
Okay, I'm sorry. Kiara, did you want to ask a question?
Yes. When you guys introduced yourselves, I believe you said something about you guys started Snowflake.
Yeah.
I would
Thank
love
you
to
for
hear
doing
that
that.
story.
So who's the president of Mask and Ham here? Kylie, that's you. So it's actually a very funny story. It's not that funny. None of us, we were all starving theater students, and we couldn't afford the $35 ticket that the sororities and fraternities had for what they called a snowball at the Hunt Union. So we said, okay, fine, we're gonna have our own semi-formal big holiday party. We called it the Snowflake, and we're going to number 37. And so we did, so the funny story is, so we did it when I was a junior, and then, so Nancy, you were a sophomore, And then we just did it every year. No, everybody brought something. We all got dressed up. We played. And then when we graduated, we just kept it going. And it wasn't until we were doing a big fundraiser for Oneonta, which I think was the 10th one, and we raised a lot of money for Oneonta, that we found out that there were more snowflakes happening on campus. And every graduating class felt like they were the ones that invented it. So there's people all over that say, oh, we started the snowflake. No, we started the snowflake, but I'm here to tell you, and Nancy is the Snowflake Committee, that it started in 19, whatever it was, but it's a lot of fun. And we had, of the 30 some odd years that we've been doing this, we've had quite a few years where it was an all year snowflake and a lot of people came. Those were our big fundraisers. But now so many people are doing their own snowflakes that it just doesn't make sense to have an all year one anymore. And we generally have about 40 to 50 people that come every year. It's religious. They plan their years around it. They plan their holiday season around it. It's a lot of fun.
It's true. I have one other little thing to add. It wasn't as innocent as it sounds. We theater majors, we were a little snobby about Greek life on campus. And we were like, the snowball, that's so stupid. We'll have our own party. It'll be the snowflake. It was totally conceived as a joke. But what happened was everybody dressed up. Somebody made homemade cannoli. Another friend went to Woolworths. There was a Woolworths and got a big punch bowl. I mean, and it was really nice. We were like, wow. So we surprised ourselves. And that's the funny part. Like, we just thought this was a goof, and it turned out to be a really great party. And so we kept it going.
So here's a question. Why are you asking?
Because you mentioned it earlier and I wanted to know.
Okay. Yeah, that's our claim to fame. And if you go to the Goodrich Theater, there's a little plaque on one of the donor panels, and it says Snowflake Committee. That'd be us. All right, what else? Anyone have another question that they want to throw in? Do we have time, Danielle? Go for it. If you don't
It's up to you, sure.
Sure.
All right, this is my last question, I promise.
No.
So, you guys said that you guys made really good relationships with the professors. Who was your favorite and why?
Huh?
And don't say Scott because he's here.
I realized that I wasn't here when they were here.
Yeah.
It's a whole different crew.
Do that.
Oh.
Who's your favorite? Go ahead, Nancy. You have one, and I know they're very different.
Well, let's see. I mean, Fred Miller, because he was just so amazing and talented, and he taught the directing class where I got struck by lightning, but he was also charming. You'd see him on campus and say, hey, Dr. Miller, how are you? And he'd say, I'm charming. So there was that, but also Ed Pixley, who's still around, but Dr. Miller has left us. Ed Pixley, who also really encouraged me as a director, and he was the one who was the most responsible for preparing me for graduate school, because he taught the play analysis class,
Right.
which a lot of our fellow students were afraid of, and I loved it. And so those are the two.
Yeah. I had one class with Richard Siegfried, and it was the class that stayed with me to this minute. And he was the most controversial professor. He taught the avant-garde theater. He wasn't the musical theater guy. He wasn't the traditional play guy, but he was the guy that made you really think outside the box. He was the guy that introduced me to, by the way, do you know that toothpaste is $3 a tube at that time? Now it's $5 a tube. Like, he taught us how to survive in an industry that doesn't tell you that toothpaste is, expensive, or that you have to make your own meals, or that you're gonna have to pay rent eventually. If you want to do this, it's a business, and you need to learn that it's a business, all the while exposing us to brands of theater that I would never have seen on my own. It was just, so I felt like he was an extraordinary, and I also am thankful that I got a chance to tell him that. And I like that. We all do what we do, but I like that he just made me think more. Good question. I guess it's too soon to ask you guys who your favorites are.
Not with me watching. I don't think they want to. I don't want to get into that.
Last and least. I'm just
He's
kidding.
last. He's at the bottom.
Scott
Remember,
and-
I don't actually control any of your grades.
That's all.
Scott and Danielle, is there anything you want to ask us that we haven't covered?
No, this has been great. This is kind of, we've kind of touched on a lot of different things.
Yeah, thank you so much for, you did such a great job. I didn't have to moderate at all. Any
Well,
final words before we sign off for the evening and let these lovely ladies go on about their evening?
It's a,
Hopefully next year we'll be back in the city.
yay. That's one
Fingers
of our
crossed.
Yeah, that's one of our favorite, Nancy and myself. And we get how many, we've had once, it's a little unwieldy sometimes. It's like 10 or 11 people at one, but it's one of my favorite lunches because we all get together and it's all of our peeps and we have a lot of fun and we just talk about what we do for a living, which is, the reality is it's just a job. It's a great job. We have a lot of fun. We're very creative. We meet a lot of great people and we pay the rent. So it's kind of cool. So you guys, I'm just going to say congratulations on surviving this wacky, so crazy, tumultuous, topsy-turvy semester that you've just survived. I hope some of you are writing about it. And I hope to see you all in person very soon.
Thank you all. Thank you all for coming. And we will be doing some more programs in the spring, but this is the last one for the fall semester. So thank you all.
Yes,
Have a
thank
good
you.
day.
Thank you
Thank
both so much. Thank you, Danielle, for organizing it. It means a
course.
lot to this club. Thank you so much.
Of course. Scott, did you want me to turn over hosting to you?
No, I think we'll conduct the rest of our business
Okay.
via Facebook or something we can manage.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Bye,
Okay,
everybody.
all, thanks for joining.